crap. It has been a day. It has been a long day of wrestling, and we still have more to go. My God, we had a count 'em, hour-long main pay-per-view card from AEW tonight. That's got to be touching the record of the longest pay-per-view ever by any company. Some of those WrestleManias were getting up there before WWE moved them to 2 nights, but that was a long one today with a 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific start. It gave them plenty of time to have all day to do their show, and it bled in to Saturday night's main event, a full hour into Saturday night's main event. And man, we got a lot to talk about. Holy crap, such a huge AEW All-In. I feel like it was a very successful pay-per-view. I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments here as we go through it. Give me your letter grades, your number grades on both shows tonight, AEW All-In and Saturday night's main event. 1 through 10, A, B, C, or D. I'm going to give AEW All-In an A for the very same reason that I talked about in the predictions, and that I said this is one of those pay-per-views where it does not matter how many 5-star matches you have or what you do. It is all going to be about outcome. If you do not have the right outcome to a couple of these specific matches, it does not matter how good your pay-per-view is overall, it's going to be deemed a failure. And I thought that Tony Storm and Hangman Page absolutely had to walk out of here all in, victorious, in order for the fans to consider this a good show and not turn on AEW. Tony Khan knew what he had to do, and he went out and he did it. Wasn't without some sadness, though, as we have a big injury to report in both companies. Adam Cole with the tearful forfeiting of the TNT Championship. We'll talk about his situation later on. And we crowned a new TNT title holder tonight at All In, and it ain't who you think it is. And then tonight on Saturday night's main event, kind of some late-breaking news we got to talk about because it sounds like it's going to be big. Seth Rollins apparently tweaked his knee legitly in that match with LA Knight, and they did call an audible because Seth was slated to win, and when it was over, you could kind of tell that BFT for the win and the way LA Knight got right out of the ring, all of that was being set up like it wasn't a work, but the way Seth sold it when he came off from that springboard, he came down pretty flat. Nothing got tweaked or twisted or bent, but he kind of sold it, and it looked like he oversold it, and to me, that part of it seemed like a work. Well, unfortunately, it seems like it's not, as Fightful Select just provided us with an update about an hour ago, and I quote, Seth Rollins landed and ended up holding his knee. He and LA Knight immediately went to the finish, with Knight winning. We're told that was an audible, and Rollins was scheduled to win. Immediately, the word backstage was that Rollins' injury was legit. It had at least not been planned for by medical personnel. We do not know the severity, and of course, we all wish Seth Rollins the best here. Hopefully that is not a catastrophic injury. The way he came down, it was that first tweak looked a little bit more real. When he came off the top rope, it was the springboard when he was springing off the top rope. But that's where I think the knee injury happened. Then he went into a moonsault and he landed fine, but then he kind of came up gimpy on the knee. Referees and doctors were talking to him a little bit, and then he got up and just ate a BFT for the win. And that all felt like it was legit because not only the way the finish came off and LA Knight's reaction to the finish felt like it was legit. Also, they were way ahead on time. That was going to leave us about 40 minutes for the Gunther and Goldberg match to finish Saturday night's main event. They put like 7 commercial breaks in there. So it felt like they were probably supposed to go a little longer there, and they had to give a lot more time to Goldberg and Gunther, which is weird because they ended up cutting off Goldberg's retirement speech when they probably could have given him a couple of extra minutes. So I feel like it was kind of poor time management there by WWE, but more importantly, hopefully whatever went on with Seth there isn't too serious, because you got to remember, he is the Money in the Bank briefcase holder, and I don't think we've come across that situation yet in all of these years of the briefcase. Well, maybe we did. It was with Kennedy, right? Have we had somebody get injured while they were the briefcase holder and have to give up the briefcase? I think Kennedy is the closest thing to that because he had to lose to Edge in whatever the situation was there. And I think it was because he was hurt, but I'm not exactly sure if that is the case. Anyway, point is that we might have a vacant briefcase if this injury is as bad as it possibly could be. Let's hope that it's not Really, really worried about Rollins there, especially this time of year for SummerSlam, knowing how big of a part of the Raw storyline he's going to be. He's aligned himself with Paul Heyman now, and to lose that, you either got to replace Seth or you have to move Braun Breaker up into that position to take over for Seth Rollins. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe Rollins just gives Breaker the briefcase and you're the guy now. I have no idea. Or maybe Roman Reigns comes back and fills in. Who knows? Let's hope that it doesn't get that far. I think Saturday night's main event, I had to kind of catch up on the show because I didn't even bother watching the first hour. And I only saw some of it, and I saw most of the matches, and I definitely saw the finishes, and I saw what they set up. Overall, I would, definitely grade All In a hell of a lot higher than Saturday night's main event. Of course, WWE, if I get myself straightened out here. Of course, WWE, is doing their counter-programming bullshit, and apparently this is not going to stop anytime soon. But tonight was a situation where, they could have had it bite them in the ass because AEW, we were watching All In tonight, and by the third match, the conclusion of the third match, we were only an hour and 50 minutes into the show already. So we were halfway through what I thought was going to be a 4-hour show. We were 2 hours in after only 3 matches. So you could tell right away, especially with the time we figured Kenny Omega and Okada would get, that they were going to run way over. And I kind of liked that because WWE wanted to do that counter-programming to control the headlines or whatnot. Well, if Hangman Page, wins and is celebrating as the new AEW World Champion 30 minutes before Goldberg waddles out to the ring, what is WWE trying to do here? I feel like, it's one thing to be competitive and to compete with your rivals. It's another thing just to be a dick because there's nothing that benefited WWE from putting all of their shows here. If anything, Evolution was going to suffer. Goldberg's retirement match was going to suffer. Great American Bash was going to suffer. Having all of that happen during All In, where if they just put it next weekend, maybe they could have had a little bit more of a spotlight on this. So I feel like situations like this, there's no benefit for the company. If WWE somehow benefited from this type of stuff, then I'd say, well, do it. It's free country, all's fair, love and war, whatever, but this is so stupid, because there's no other reason other than to be petty penises. That's the only reason they're doing this. And I find that fucking weak because, there's this global juggernaut that, is never going to give up to their number one spot to anybody. What are they so worried about? Why are they so insecure? Just do what you do. Sure, you can have some friendly competition, trade some shots back and forth, compete for free agents, and if you do have to counter program here or there, if a certain situation arises where, hey, it would be in our best interest to run head to head with them or something, then fucking do it. I don't care. But when you do it so pointlessly, that is when you are, kind of hurting the fans because, wrestling fans are wrestling fans and they can't watch everything at once. And when you're forcing them to, it's just a dick move. It's just a dick move. That's all. And they have every right to be dicks. I'm not saying it's illegal for them to be dicks. They can be dicks, but I want to call you out for being a dick. And I just think that, the women tomorrow and Goldberg tonight, I think they could have had more eyes on what they were doing if this was on a different day or weekend, I should say, than AEW All In with their biggest show of the year, with them really piling on a lot in their big 3 main event matches here. And you knew we were going to have a big-time main event and a potential huge title change that could go down as one of the best in AEW history. And many people arguably probably thought that they accomplished that. So, it was really, it was kind of fun. I took the weekend off in anticipation for this. So for me, since it's kind of my job to be here on YouTube and stuff, I kind of enjoyed sitting here for 6.5 hours watching the show with you guys, trying to peek at Saturday night's main event. When All In went off the air, I ran and grabbed a couple of tacos across the street. I shoveled them in my mouth. Tried to catch up on Saturday night's main event while I'm throwing together a new thumbnail and making notes and trying to catch up on the results and making sure I know what to talk about here. I kind of like that. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of people might not enjoy the chaos. And of course, today's show was incredibly long, but at least it was during the day. You know, I've given a lot of flack to fans who complain about long shows, and I'm like, suck it up, you pussies. But at least I understand their viewpoint, because a lot of times it's at night. You're going into 12:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, still watching wrestling. That's a little bit absurd. But if you have a daytime show, who gives a shit if it's 5 hours? You can't stay up from 3 to 8 o'clock past your bedtime? You can do it. And even if it's 6 hours, 3 to 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 9 o'clock, big deal. That's much more, it's much easier, I would think, for fans to manage a really, really long show during the day. And I'm liking that we're getting some of these daytime shows now. And of course, our friends across the pond over in Scotland and England and everywhere over there got to watch the show at a normal time like we get to watch it over here. So, you know, I think like everybody wins when you do earlier shows like that. And I'm glad that if Tony Khan is going to throw his audience a 6 fucking hour show, including 2 hours on the 0 hour or on the pre-show, so you're talking 8 hours, you're talking a full night of sleep here, is how long this pay-per-view was nuts. If you're going to do that, at least he did it during the day. And that's good. I thought All In was amazing. It was great to see Hangman Page win the championship in, you know, a finish that felt pretty, I don't want to say predictable. We knew we were going to get a shit ton of interference, and ultimately it was probably going to come down to a Darby Allin or a Swerve Strickland, especially after what we saw between Swerve and Hangman on Collision. That little sit down, I really liked that. Once that happened, you know, that was them kind of just hammering home that the final blow or the final deciding factor here is going to have to come from Swerve. But we knew we were going to see Darby Allin as well. And I got to shout out Darby Allin. As he made his return, they cut to the Tron, and this man took a fucking video on the summit of Mount Everest, where he already said he was going to plant an AEW flag. We still haven't seen footage of that, but he claimed he did it. And they showed video of him cutting a promo from the top, not like a base camp or anything like that, the tippy top of Mount Everest. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And he cut a wrestling promo to be used in a pay-per-view main event on the summit of Mount Everest. And he said, John Moxley, I just climbed Mount Everest, and now I'm going to climb down to take everything away from you. And then he starts propelling from the ceiling, you know, and he unhooks himself and he delivers a coffin drop to all the cronies. But what it really came down to was Swerve Strickland. When he showed up and he stopped the Bucks and he gave Hangman Page the chain and just kind of gave him that look, and Hangman was able to put down Moxley and choke him out over the top rope. That was the story they were telling, you know. And when we were talking about the casino gauntlet matches, both of them, but specifically the men after MJF won, you know, MJF's going to come out and cash in. I'm like, what are you guys smoking? You know, this is all about just giving the fans, giving AEW this moment of this new champion. You got all the time in the world to do the cash in with MJF. To do it here would be silly. I also had the crazy idea of Darby Allin could maybe turn heel and help Moxley win. They weren't going to do any of that. All these crazy ideas that we threw out there, MJF cashing in, Darby, you knew none of this stuff was going to happen. It was going to be Hangman Page to throw something extra at you. It was unneeded. Fans were going to go home happy here. And Tony Khan, I don't think, would just purposely piss off his fans just to do it. If you had Hangman Page win and MJF then cash in on him, that makes zero sense based on the current storylines they've been doing in AEW. So it was going to be Hangman's night. I'm glad that it was. That was the right call. So was putting Toni Storm over Mercedes Moné. I do not think Mercedes Moné needed to be carrying the world championship when she is TBS champion, because she's going to set the record here as that title holder. And it would be weird if she dropped the TBS title while she was AEW world champion. And it would be even weirder if she forfeited the title and vacated it because she can't defend it when you're so close to breaking Jade Cargill's record anyway. So to me, all the signs were pointing to Toni Storm retaining the championship, and she did, and that was a big deal. I got to say, I was surprised by Omega and Okada. Had Kenny winning that one all the way. That one surprised me a little bit. We also saw the return of Adam Copeland on All In as well. And here's something for you. It has to be, my worst pay-per-view predictions performance of all time. Between the two shows, All In and Saturday night's main event, I predicted 13 matches. 9 on All In, 4 on Saturday night's main event. I got 5 matches right and 8 matches wrong. I have never done that poorly. I was like 0 for 5 to start All In. It was bad. It was bad. And I only got 2 of the matches right on Saturday night's main event as well. So I got 6 wrong on 6 out of the 9 wrong on All In, and I went 2 for 2 on Saturday night's main event. That's crazy. That's crazy. But anyway, we're going to talk about All In first. We're going to run through these results. Let me say hello to everybody that is here in the chat right now. Do me a favor, because it's been a long day. That thumbs up button, help us out, smash it. If you are not a subscriber, please become one. All of our super chats that are sent this evening will be answered, and I'll be interested to see what you guys thought of tonight's shows. And if you had a chance to watch both, or if you watched one, haven't watched the other one yet, if you're relying on me, let me know here in the chat. Let me go to the top here just so I can say my hellos. Garrett Osborne, good to see you. Max Pokebra is in the house. We got Doug Unfunny, Intimidator, Michael Kumo. We got Melissa Hernandez, Zane G, Sonic Plays, Tatanani. We got Brandon McNeil, Ajax Johnson, JL, Nick Musser, Delayed Gratz, $10 from Ryan Adams. What a fun day of wrestling. Goldberg had a fun retirement match, but 2 pretty big injuries from both companies. Also, rumors are that Cena's final opponent will be Gunther. Interesting. Thanks for the $10, Ryan. I know you were here with us all day today as well. I got kind of up. I got up around 10 o'clock today. Then I started streaming at noon, and it is now 8:20. I've been in front of the camera all fucking day. So basically noon until probably after 10 p.m. here, or close to it, is how long I am going to be doing wrestling YouTube stuff. About 10 straight hours today. Crazy. But it was a fun one. That's for sure. Good to see the new one in here as well. Stone Cold 10X, Nate Dog Kata, David Brown, Colin Wright dropping in $2. It was ironic that Seth called Punk fragile. Yeah, but let's not make fun of an injury. Really hoping that Seth's injury is not that bad, because that's really going to fuck up plans, I think. I put on Twitter, and I mean this in a very fun-loving way, but for those who are scoring at home, empty-headed dumb fuck, world champion, CM Punk, just got back from Saudi Arabia. You can just take a nice drink of that irony. Oh, my God. Gilbert Arbalo, good to see you. We also have Zach Palgett, Mike Witt in the house. Shabazz Jones is here. We've got Ben Espinoza, Joshua Aparicio. Fun fact, MJF once made a Happy Meal cry. Sharks have a week dedicated to him. He doesn't say anything tastes like chicken, not even chicken. Shell Shock, did I get you? Nick Morales, Austin Olson, good to see everybody. Thank you for being here for the review, and thank you to those of you who have been here for both the review and the watch-along this evening. It's been a crazy one. By the way, cheers to you. I spent the entire watch-along today just drinking orange juice and sodas and waters, so I finally opened up a cold one to cheers. One hell of a night of wrestling, or day of wrestling, and now we got to talk about it. These are the type of days YouTubers like me live for. Wrestling all day, sun up to sundown. I did go outside once today to retrieve some lunch. Other than that, I've been indoors. I've been an indoor boy today. All right, let me just get myself centered here and get the chat pulled up in my notes. All right, well, I think we are going to start with All In, because this was a really, really good show. Live from Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. It looks like, according to reports, that the attendance was a little bit more than 27,000, a little under 28,000. Which is good to me. It looked like about 25. They had sold about 25 or 26 as of the last update today. So in all, sounds like they had about 27K there. The building looked great. The stadium looked great. They had it set up in such a way to where it looked full. No pockets of empty fans or empty seats or anything like that. Over on the Hardcam side, I'm sure there was some tarps, just like there was at SummerSlam 2021 when they had half the fucking arena closed down. So it's nothing new there, but the way it was set up and the way it came off on TV looked really good. Nice big crowd. Happy that they were able to pull in at least this many fans for this one. Now, I did not watch the 0 hour at all, but here's what we saw. We had just a whole bunch of Rhodes and Von Erichs out there. We had the Sons of Texas. It was Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, Marshall, and Ross Von Erich, with Kevin Von Erich and Wyatt and Wayne Rhodes on the outside of the ring, defeating Shane Taylor Promotions. We also had Anthony Ogogo outside of the ring, which I haven't seen him in forever, along with Kevin Von Erich, who got into it a little bit with Anthony. And Sons of Texas won with the Iron Claw press, I guess. Big Boom AJ and the Conglomeration. They defeated the Don Callis family. Didn't watch much of that match. I did see Big Justice. I think he did get assaulted, though. And then we had FTR defeating the Outrunners. And this match was fun because the Outrunners' gear, their trunks or their tights, were in the style of like a pack of Newport cigarettes. It was pretty awesome. Or Cools, maybe, or whatever some popular 80s cigarettes were. They looked pretty awesome. So that's pretty much what you saw on the 0 hour, but I did not watch much of that. I was too busy just kind of waking up and getting ready. But the main card wound up having 9 total matches on it, and I got the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got the first 5 matches wrong, and we started with the AEW World Trios Championships. This was the Ops, Shibata, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Samoa Joe, defeating the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, and Gabe Kidd. This was a muscle buster to Wheeler Yuta from Samoa Joe for the win. I kind of had this one wrong. I thought whenever the Ops defended their trios titles next on pay-per-view, it would be Hook coming out to screw them over. But once this match started, I started not feeling that prediction. So I wasn't really surprised that it didn't turn out to be that. And also, after the match here, they injured Samoa Joe. They ran a post-match angle where they attacked the Ops and isolated Samoa Joe and put the chair around his head and neck, Pillman style, over only with his face down. I've never really seen it done that way. And Claudio came in with a stomp to Samoa Joe, and he had to be stretchered out. So he's 1/3 of the trio's champions, and I'm curious if whatever's going to go on with Hook is now going to be factored into this Samoa Joe injury. Maybe now Hook has to come back to replace Samoa Joe, and maybe it still results in a Hook heel turn, or maybe he purposely sabotages the team and causes them to lose the trios championships, or maybe this angle was only done to keep Joe out of the main event situation, because they did something similar in the main event when Ospreay came out, and they did the same thing to him with the chair. So, I thought maybe it was just to, lighten the amount of support that Hangman Page would have in the main event, just to, make Swerve and Darby's moments more special. I don't know. Or maybe there's something else with this, because I feel like if Joe wouldn't have gotten hurt, we could have very well seen the Ops in the main event tonight as well, doing some sort of a run-in. But Joe is now out. We'll see how they handle this in storyline with the Trios Championships, because it's a kayfabe injury. But, when you stomp somebody's head in the chair like that, even if it's a kayfabe injury, you're going to have to keep them off TV for a while. So we will see what they do there. Then it was the men's casino gauntlet match. I had this thing all wrong. I didn't even know who was in it other than Mark Briscoe, MJF, and Mystico. And based on everything Mystico and MJF have done against each other, and MJF attacking Mystico in MLW recently, I kind of thought that Mystico would cause Max to not win this match, or the two of them would cancel each other out. And I kind of was hoping for a nice surprise, like a Jay White, like a Pac, like an Eddie Kingston, like a Keith Lee, something like that. And we didn't really get any of that. Instead, it was not my prediction. I just kind of, in the predictions, I was like, you know what? Eddie Kingston, fuck it. Let's say Eddie Kingston. I knew I was wrong, but I thought I would look like a genius if I was right. Some people even had Darby Allin, but I'm like, that's not going to be Darby. Darby is going to come out in the main event. It would be stupid for him to win here, and then come in and take away from Hangman's moment and win the title or something. No, I didn't see him coming out, but I was hoping we'd at least get one return, and I guess we did. One return we did see in the men's Casino Gauntlet was Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson coming out with a completely new look, a very, very dull look. He's still Crazy Juice, but now he's completely clean-shaven, and he's wearing like what The Undertaker would wear in 2007. Just a black singlet and black pants, and he's kind of even got hair. He looks a little bit like Bo Dallas, too. And I don't know how I feel about it, because I really like Crazy Juice. You know, I like the brightly colored Juice with the goatee and the crazy wild hair, and he's going crazy. He looks, or he's going nuts. He looks very plain here. He looks like Chronic's Mini-Me or something like that. So that surprised me. He was also joined by the Ass Boys, who came out there as well in this match. But we had the likes of Mark Briscoe, Bandito, Konosuke Takeshita, Josh Alexander, Anthony Bowens, Brody King, Mystico, Roderick Strong, Ricochet, Juice Robinson, Kota Ibushi, The Beast Immortos, and Max Caster. So there was a lot of talent in here. In the end, it was for MJF. It was a single leg hook on I guess, how did he pin Roderick Strong? I forgot how he pinned Roddy. The whole time that this was happening, I was kind of hoping that, because they didn't tell you how many people were in this, nothing. So you didn't know how many competitors there were, nothing like that. So I kept looking at my list of surprises, waiting for one of them to come out. And the fact that it was Juice really, really surprised me. But in the end, it was MJF getting the win. I should have predicted him all along, made the most sense. I don't know what I was thinking, but it was MJF coming away with the victory here in a pretty fun Casino Gauntlet. We had Takeshita and Bandito out there, who the night before had a crazy match for the championship in Ring of Honor. That was great, and they were back out here again. A lot of people working double duty this weekend, and I thought the Casino Gauntlet was probably... The winner was probably the right call. MJF's doing a lot of stuff with the Hurt Syndicate, and based on what we would see later with the Hurt Syndicate and FTR and Christian and Copeland, you might be able to see where this might be going. After that was the saddest part of the show. It was really hard to watch this. Now, earlier on in the day, prior to the show going live, Tony Khan made the announcement that Adam Cole was not cleared to compete in the championship match. It was supposed to be Adam Cole defending against Kyle Fletcher. So what they did is they stripped Adam Cole of the championship, and they booked a four-way match with Kyle Fletcher now taking on Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes and Daniel Garcia. So it was going to be a four-way match for the vacant TNT championship. But before that match happened, Adam Cole came out with the championship, makes his entrance. You can see it in his face. Extremely emotional. And this is right after the big Casino Gauntlet. So Roderick Strong kind of hangs around out there at ringside. And Kyle O'Reilly is there too. And Cole gets on the mic. He does his whole entrance. And he explains that he's not cleared to wrestle and that it's pretty serious and that he's going to be out for a while. And he said, I'm not even in the right headspace to talk about retirement right now, but kind of admitted that might be what this has to be. And he described this as health issues, not necessarily an injury. And that was the first thing I said when he's coming down to the ring. I'm like, he looks physically fine. There's nothing wrong with his legs. He's walking. He's not limping. So it's not a leg problem. It's not a foot problem like, I think he had before. We know he's had the issues with the concussions, and that might be what this is about. We don't really know. He's only going to share, I think, what he's comfortable sharing, and that's fine. But the way he kind of worded it and the emotion on his face was really, really heartbreaking, because you could tell that this might actually be it for him. And that's what I talked about even before he came out there. I said, since the minute he got to AEW, it's just been one disappointment after another with these injuries. He's had a couple of long bouts out. It felt so good to see him come into AEW. I thought the sky was going to be the limit for him, and just really, really, really bad luck. And it's a shame. And so he thanked the fans, thanked everybody for their support, said all he wanted to ever do ever since he was a little kid, be a wrestler, and he wound up forfeiting the title, and tears by this point are streaming down his face. This is not any sort of acting job here. This is very real. And he forfeits the title, lays it in the ring, then Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong come in, and they share a hug, and it was just absolutely heartbreaking, like so heartbreaking that to watch Adam Cole have to go through that. And even when he was leaving, when everybody was coming out to the ring, him and Garcia had a few really, really nice words as well. So you could tell that this was a very sad day for Adam Cole and the entire wrestling business. Britt Baker, sent out a nice tweet for her ex here. And what makes this, I think sting even harder is that, Adam Cole is such a good person, Like, I've met him. He's just the nicest, most down-to-earth motherfucker you will ever meet. You don't hear any nastiness about him. He doesn't have a fucking vile and crazy and psychotically unhinged social media presence. He doesn't have a history of sketchy things and run-ins with the law and being a jerk-off and rubbing people the wrong way and having a bad reputation and, all of these different negative qualities a wrestler can have. He has none of them. If anything, he's got every positive quality you would want a wrestler to have. And he's super down to earth. And it sucks to see this happen to someone like him. It sucks to see that happen to anybody, but someone like him, Cole is just such a great human being. And you just don't like to see it. So all the best, Adam Cole. We love you on this channel. And what gives me a little bit of comfort here is that Adam Cole, even though wrestling is obviously a huge, huge part of his life, he has a whole nother life. He doesn't put all of his eggs in one basket to where without wrestling, he's nothing. He has a very fulfilling streaming life and streaming platform where he games, and it's a part of his life that he really, really enjoys. Sometimes I wonder if he enjoys it more than pro wrestling. So even though not being able to wrestle again, if that turns out to be the case and he has to retire or something, that's going to be devastating for him. It's going to be devastating for the fans, and we're going to wish him the absolute best managing that and dealing with that, mentally and what that all means. But, at least he's not somebody that is just 1,000,000,000,000% devoted to the business and the only thing he cares about in life is pro wrestling. This is somebody that can still do things that he enjoys, and he's not going to be completely lost without the business. Sure, it's going to be a transition, and it's going to be sad. You don't like to see someone's career end that early, again, if that's what this turns out to be. But I take comfort in knowing that, Chugs will still be doing his thing, and he will still be doing things that he enjoys and should live himself a pretty damn sweet life, even if he's not able to wrestle again, or maybe he has to take 10 years off like a couple of other wrestlers have in the past. Either way, all the best to Adam Cole. We've been through it. We've seen situations like this throughout the years where somebody, suffers an injury and has to either forfeit their title or take a significant amount of time off, or retire outright. Edge, famously back in 2011 had a very similar type of promo, and it took him years to come back, 9 years to finally return. So we don't know what it is with Adam Cole. I hope that it's nothing worse than the concussion stuff he's already dealt with. When he says health issues, I hope it's nothing more than that. I had my bout with that, in July. I just went in for a routine checkup, and holy shit, a whole bunch of alarm bells went off in my blood work, and we had to find out what was wrong with me. And it turns out I have a disorder and a blood cancer, so let's hope that it's nothing like that, and Adam Cole is just, I don't want to say like, I hope it's a concussion. I mean, I just hope it's related to that and it's not something extra that he's dealing with, because clearly when he was coming out to the ring, he was fine, walking, knees were fine, walking smoothly. Heartbreaking, especially when you see it happen to wrestlers that you love. It's nothing new to us, but it doesn't get easier whenever we see it. So we love you, Adam Cole, from the heart. So anyway, now one can't grieve forever. We have a new TNT champion to crown. And this is going to be a four-way match. Like I said, Kyle Fletcher still in the match, taking on Daniel Garcia, Sammy Guevara, and Dustin Rhodes. So I assumed, breaking my own rule here by assuming things, that this match is a formality. If this match would have gone off as scheduled, Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher, Kyle would have won. I picked Kyle Fletcher to become the new TNT champion, and I thought when they made this four-way that it was just a way to still give him that win and that victory. He's just going to beat 3 guys instead of 1. But boy, did they swerve us. Dustin Rhodes. Last time I checked, Dustin Rhodes is, according to Google, is 91 years old. He wins the TNT Championship, rolling up Kyle Fletcher in a surprise pin to win the title. I love it. I love it. Who cares? Kyle Fletcher can still win. All this means is Kyle Fletcher's probably just going to beat Dustin Rhodes for the title. I saw, because I was watching the pay-per-view on AEW's YouTube page, so I'm kind of reading their chat, right? And, I can't believe they did this. This is fucking stupid. Blah, blah, blah. Why is it stupid? Like, why? Kyle Fletcher should have won it. I'm like, he still can. He still will. I wouldn't worry about it. This was Tony Khan taking, I wouldn't say taking advantage, but turning a horrible negative into a positive. You know what? This is heartbreaking for Adam Cole. We had Kyle Fletcher slated to win the TNT Championship. Now with this injury to Cole, I can maybe prolong Kyle Fletcher's win, give it to him at another time against, or in a one-on-one match, and we can do that in the main event of Dynamite or wherever we want to do it. How about we throw a bone to Dustin Rhodes and give him the TNT Championship, the same belt his brother won, and one of the most prestigious singles titles he's won in many, many years. So, the ring, he's had the Ring of Honor tag, right? He didn't win the Ring of Honor World, right? Just the tag. So, to me, it's going to be a kind of a short run for Dustin, but you like to see it, Dustin still being able to wrestle at this level. He's not, I mentioned this during the watch along today. I said, one cool thing about Dustin is that he's not like a Goldberg or a Jericho or even a Jeff Jarrett, to where when they're in there, you're like, get these guys out of my fucking face. You don't feel that way about Dustin because he is so timeless. No offense to Tony Storm, but he's so timeless because he's always kind of worn the bodysuit and everything. And, he kind of can hide how his aging has been going. And he's in great shape this stage in his career. He's a lot leaner than he used to be, 27 years ago in the 90s when he was kind of fat, to be honest. Now he's lean. He's all DDP yogaed up, in the best shape of his life. And he's got a terrific attitude. He's happy. He's healthy. He's sober. And all these years and how he was able to turn his life around and just to be in there. I don't give a shit how old you are. As long as you can credibly work, I don't care if you're 90 years old. Unfortunately, people just can't be that old and work really credible matches. And we see that in Jericho's quality of work, in Goldberg's quality of work, and guys like that, where with Dustin, obviously he's slowed down a bit, but he can still do all the gold dust stuff. And I was really happy to see this because to me, there's no harm done here. There's no harm in this. The TNT Championship was essentially dead ever since Jack Perry won it. Daniel Garcia didn't do anything to restore any life or breathe any life back into it. Giving Dustin a quick little feel-good run will not damage this belt any further than it's already been damaged. So in my mind, just rebook the TNT title match for a little bit in the future, anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks from now. Kyle Fletcher, Dustin Rhodes. You can do it at Forbidden Door. You can do it at All Out. You can do it on Dynamite. Wherever you do it, give Fletcher the win. He wins the championship, and all is right with the world. I didn't have any problem or any issue with what they did here, and I think maybe the thought process was, maybe like twofold. Number one, you turn a horrible negative into a positive, but also, giving the belt to Dustin Rhodes, giving the fans a feel-good moment right after a heartbreaking moment from Adam Cole might be better than giving them Captain fucking douchebag. And I love Kyle Fletcher. He's our douchebag, but he is one. Give Captain fucking douchebag a win with that idiot Don Callis with him. Give him the victory right after we had to sit through that heartbreak from Adam Cole. a little feel-good moment here. It's more Ted Lasso and less Breaking Bad, and I like that. So I'm perfectly fine with Dustin Rhodes winning the championship. Congrats to Dustin. I don't think it's going to be a long run, but I'm happy that he captured some gold at this stage in his life, and he's one of these old wrestlers that, for me anyway, everybody else might have a different opinion, but for me, has not overstayed his welcome. He's not being utilized or used in such a way on TV where I think he is hanging on too long, refusing to let go of past greatness, taking spots away from younger talent. He's not doing any of that. Anything he's doing in Ring of Honor is helping talent, in any mentoring that he can establish over there. So he's being used, to me, to perfection. Sting was like that because he was being used just enough, to where he wasn't taken away from everybody, and he ended up having a beautiful retirement send-off. You couldn't ask for a better one. I think Sting's was way better than what Goldberg's was tonight. That's for sure. So when it comes to the elderly, aside from Jericho, I got to say AEW uses them well. Even Jarrett. I had a lot of positive things to say about Jarrett when he got to AEW. I thought that was a stupid signing, but then when he got there, he was entertaining. And that's all I ask. I just want to be entertained by what you're doing, not turned off by it. And Jarrett entertained me. Dustin Rhodes entertained me. Sting entertained me. Jericho did not entertain me. So it just depends. It just depends. Congratulations to Dustin Rhodes. So at this point, what am I, 0 for 3? I'm 0 for 3 in my predictions. Let's make it a nice 0 for 4 because here's another match I got wrong. The Young Bucks putting their EVP titles on the line against Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, who are also putting something on the line. If they lose, neither man can challenge for the AEW World Championship for 1 year. And I thought that was a clear indicator that the Bucks were actually going to win here because I thought you could make a fun story out of Swerve and Ospreay not being able to challenge for a year. And I even had, if they would have lost here, this could still happen, but if they would have lost here, I had them both being finalists in the Owen Hart tournament next year, with Ospreay getting the win and then winning the title at All In London next year in front of his homeland. And then maybe having a short run with the title and Swerve takes it away from him. Something like that. But none of that's going to happen because Swerve and Will Ospreay wound up winning. This was a really fun match. One of the better tag team matches, we've seen in quite a while. The Bucks, they still got it. Nick especially, they're both kind of looking a little old. Nick more than Matt. But physically it feels like they're overmatched. Swerve is strong. Will Ospreay's bigger than both of them. And I thought that, they were going to have the size and strength advantage over the Bucks. The Bucks are going to have the advantage of being brothers and being a team a lot longer. And Swerve and Ospreay clearly not on the same page. When Ospreay made the stip without consulting Swerve, I thought the Bucks were going to be able to take advantage of that. And Ospreay being the person to lose the match for the team would, then send Swerve and Ospreay perhaps into a program. But I'm actually kind of glad it went the other way. Swerve and Will Ospreay wound up getting the win. I didn't write down every spot in this match because I'm mostly going by memory, but I do know it was a hidden blade and a house call combination for the win. And this match was filled with all the great moves and athleticism and acrobatics you would expect from these guys. And it was a lot of fun. And I think at the end of the day, even though I predicted and was okay with Ospreay and Strickland losing and then having to go the year, I'm glad it didn't go that way. I'm almost relieved that they didn't lose because that meant, that neither guy could challenge for the championship either. Forget about winning it, but Swerve and Ospreay can have some great championship matches here for the next year, even if they don't win the title. So I'm happy that I was wrong about that prediction. Next up was the women's casino gauntlet match. This was Chris Statlander, Megan Bayne, Willow Nightingale, Ty Mello, who had Anna Jay and Harley Cameron out there. We had Tekla, we had Julia Hart, Queen Aminata, Mina Shirakawa, Athena, Thunder Rosa, Sayuri, and Alex Windsor. This was a lot of fun. Again, I'm expecting some sort of maybe a return or a surprise here. I had picked Megan Bayne only because I knew she was in it, and she's a big badass, but they loaded this up early with some big badasses. It was Chris Statlander and Megan to start. Then they were joined by Willow Nightingale. So, you had a lot of power in there early, and in the end, it was Athena who came down. I think she hit her finisher, right? O-face onto Mina Shirakawa. You could tell she was setting up for it because Mina was in the ring. I forgot who she had a hold of, but you could see off camera there Athena climbing to the top. I'm like, oh, she's going to come in with her Stone Cold Stunner finisher, her twisting top rope stunner or whatever it is, and nail Shirakawa, and that's what she did. And Athena. I should have picked Athena. She was on my radar. I don't know why I didn't pick her. But Athena wins the women's casino gauntlet, which means she can now challenge for the championship and perhaps cash in. So, when she won, I was a little bit worried that could mean Mercedes was going to beat Tony because they could rebook Athena and Mercedes. But I'm glad I was wrong about that. It's just a matter now of when Athena is going to cash in, and I'm glad that they were able to get her on this show. I was getting a little irritated because she wasn't booked for anything. So I'm like, if she's not in this casino match, that's going to be fucked up. So not only was she in it, she won it. So that was the right call. Athena not only having a match, but winning one here in front of her home city, or I think she's from there, right? Arlington. So good for Athena. That made me super happy. Up next was the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Man, did we have a lot going on here. I kind of thought this was going to be your buffer, but it really wasn't. It was the Hurt Syndicate. They did, in fact, defeat, Jet Speed and the Patriarchy to retain the AEW Tag Team titles here. But the story was what was going on during and after the match. So during the match, it was Stokely Hathaway and FTR. They were sitting on commentary. They made that announcement earlier on in the show that they were going to be out there for the World Tag Team match. So FTR is out there. Stokely's in there with them. And I think it was before the match finish, Bobby Lashley just went over there and pie-faced both these bitches right into each other. I think he pie-faced Dax, who fell into Cash. They both fell over the chairs. And then it was who got pinned there? I think it was Christian. Christian got beat. That's what it was. I think it was a spear from Bobby Lashley to Christian Cage for the win, I believe, right? So the Hurt Syndicate, they get the victory. Should be mentioned that MJF and MVP were out there. They were also wrapped to the ring by Smoke DZA and West Side Gun, and MVP himself was also rapping as they were coming out to the ring. So we did have some cool special entrances here. Did I miss anybody's earlier? Yeah, Will Ospreay and Strickland had, I should have mentioned this. Let's just backtrack. Rewind just a minute while we're talking about special entrances here. Will Ospreay had the aerial assassin flying ninja deal, and Swerve Strickland had a nice little song from JoJo. This is a Chaka Khan song that apparently Swerve came out to during his indie run, and JoJo Offerman, the widow of Bray Wyatt, who's appeared for AEW before, sang that song, and it was beautiful. I should have mentioned that because that was very cool. And the Young Bucks as well came in on a big boat as the Founding Fathers, like they're on the fucking Mayflower or something. It just looked like it was some sort of wooden boat that was built and put up on a scissor lift, and they were lifting it and raising it up and down. Other than that, I'm not missing any other special entrances there. But for the tag match, it was pretty cool because we had the Hurt Syndicate getting that little special entrance there. So anyway, after the match, we saw that FTR had already had some previous problems with the Patriarchy. And, they had the little run-in here with Bobby Lashley. Months ago, maybe like 2 months ago, we had FTR defeating the Hurt Syndicate to win the tag team titles, and then losing them here at All In to Copeland and Christian. So I think all of that is still going to happen. We're just way early on it. They're going to be taking their time, because if you look at AEW's pay-per-view calendar, there's a little show called All Out in a specific city that might be very welcoming to the idea of a Cope and Christian tag team championship win. It's in Canada. It's above New York. Starts with a T. Do I need to go any further? So I think maybe they're setting up everything there. So Hurt Syndicate win. After the match, FTR come into the ring and they start getting in Christian in the patriarchy's face. And you could kind of see what was happening here. I think Christian was on the mat and FTR came in the ring, and then Mama Wayne and Nick, they came in, and Kip Sabian, who's also out there, they kind of came in to protect him a little bit. But once they weren't getting physical, I said during the watch along, I'm like, is Nick Wayne about to turn? And they kind of help Christian up, but then they attack him. Nick Wayne attacks Christian. They take him out. Mama Wayne slaps him around. And to me, and Kip Sabian is in his face as well. And I'm like, to me, this is justice. You know, they're playing this off like this is some big heel turn. To me, Nick, Kip, and Mama Wayne just turned babyface is all. Everything that Christian has done and said to these people, he's coming off like the babyface here. Are you kidding me? To me, he was getting everything he deserved. The absolute snot kicked out of him is what he deserved for what he did. And it was happening, but the fans, you know, were kind of, you know, it was executed and presented like it was a heel turn, and I guess technically it was, or they're already heels, but it was them just basically turning on Christian Cage, and now Christian Cage is going to wind up being the babyface. So they go, so FTR and Nick Wayne, they go to the outside to get the chairs, right? So it's time to concerto Christian. So earlier on during the match, we were talking about the possibility of Cope showing up. But after Hurt Syndicate won, we thought that was going to be the end of it. But then we have the post-match angle. So we're like, okay, here we go. And of course, they set up Christian for the concerto. And we get the music on this day. And out comes Adam Copeland to save his best friend from what would be certain death. But not before you salute the crowd and do your entrance. You got to do that first, even if your friend's life is in danger. Like anybody, Garrett Tatanani, if one of your friends is being mugged and beaten to death on the street and you need to save his life, make absolutely sure that you get your entrance in first. It's very, very important. Don't forget that. So Copeland, after he made his entrance, now finally you have time to save a human life. That's good. He runs down there and runs off the heels from Christian. And then I was like, he's got the opportunity to do the funniest thing here because the microphone was in the ring. So I picked up the mic and I was saying on the watch along, I was saying, go fuck yourself. Say go fuck yourself. Say Car Ramrod. Say it. And Cope gets on the mic and he goes, go find yourself. Drops the mic and leaves. So it wasn't that quick. I really liked that. I didn't want a hug here. There's too much bad blood still. You know, even if you're lifelong friends, that shit doesn't just evaporate overnight. So I'm happy that Cope saved him, but didn't give him a hug, didn't even touch him, and just said, go find yourself. It reminds me of The Departed. With everybody looking up their own ass and you looking for yourself, I put my money on nobody finds nothing. So Christian has to find himself. You're telling me. So Christian's got to go find himself, and I think this is setting up what I had already pitched for All In. I think it's just going to be moved to All Out, which is in Toronto. You got to have FTR beat the Hurt Syndicate. My initial pitch for this was to have MJF cost the Hurt Syndicate the match inadvertently, putting them or him on their shit list, and he's the one with the championship shot. So if he fucks over the Hurt Syndicate, what's going to be their motivation to help him win the championship? You fucked us out of our titles. Now where you expect us to help you win yours? Fuck out of here. So I feel like it's still probably going to be that. We will get an FTR versus Hurt Syndicate match within the next month, I believe. And when that happens, TV, wherever it is, FTR will win. They will be the new AEW World Tag Team title holders or champions. And then Christian will find himself. Hopefully he's just hiding behind the couch or something, or under the bed. Maybe he's in the closet. Who knows? So once Christian finds himself, he can reconcile with Copeland. You got Christian, Copeland, CNC going after the AEW World Tag Team titles and winning them in Toronto. I don't see how you write it any other way. Right? It's got to be that. It's got to be that. So good stuff there. Welcome back, Adam Cope. All right. Did I miss a match? Why do I feel like we're getting... No, I guess we're on pace. And then it was time for the triple main event. Now, we did talk about which match was going to main event, and we did have some fear that maybe Moxley and Hangman would not main event the show. And if they didn't, that was going to be your confirmation or guarantee pretty much that Moxley would be retaining. But during the 0 hour, when I did have it on, I just kind of had it on and I was half-assed paying attention to it. I did hear the commentary team talking about the main event, and Shivani said something about like, oh, we got a great night ahead of us here, fans, a triple main event to be capped off with Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page. So I'm like, okay, that they're basically telling me they're going to be the main event. So I went through most of the show tonight not worried about it not being the main event because that was already made apparent to me. I don't know if they officially announced it and I didn't see it anywhere. They might have officially announced it was going to be the main event, but the way the announcers were talking about it on the 0 hour, I felt pretty good about that match being the final match that we saw. So up first in the triple main event was the Women's Championship. This is another big match here where I think outcome is everything, because if you ever want to see how fucking stupid some of the incel wrestling fans are in this world, all you have to do is search Mercedes Moné Creative Control on your social media platforms and read these fucking idiots' comments. It has been too much of that all week long. For that reason alone, I didn't want Mercedes to win because I didn't want to add any fuel to the idiot fire that's already burning no matter what they learn from the contrary, no matter what they hear, no matter how many times it's burned into their heads. Mercedes Moné does not have creative control. They quadruple down and still insist that she does, even though they have no evidence, no sources. They don't have dick other than their own insecurities and their anger management issues. That's it. I did not want Mercedes winning here because if she did, those little pricks were just going to be louder. And plus, it wouldn't have made any sense. Which is why, finally, I got a prediction right here. I predicted Toni Storm to win. Why would Mercedes Moné win that championship when she's the TBS champion already? She's had a long run with that title. You are essentially killing that run if you put the title on her. She's got to lose at some point. And why not lose to the most over woman, probably not only in AEW, but in the entire world? I also wanted this match to be somewhat good. I thought if this was a good match that delivered in the ring and we got a Toni Storm victory, that was going to be a good omen for later. But if Mercedes won here, could you imagine if we talked about this? I said the entire pay-per-view hinges on this. Imagine if these two outcomes were flipped. If Mercedes won here and Mox retained, holy crap. I think you'd have a lot of angry fans right now. I'm done with AEW. Blah, 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 blah. So Tony Khan had to do the right thing here, and I'm glad that he didn't get crazy here. And this match was good. I got to say, Timeless Tony and Mercedes pulled off a really good match. I enjoyed the entrances by both. Mercedes had a whole entire cheerleading squad out there, and each one of the cheerleaders were wearing one of the belts that she currently holds, which I think totals 6 right now. And then Timeless Toni Storm had another one of her little, short, old-timey style movie intros there before she came out. Tremendous ovation, and the match was good. Toni Storm did seem to get popped in her own nose there. I think when she delivered a really vicious headbutt to Mercedes, she came up and she kind of had a bloody nose for most of that match. But, you wouldn't know it. She was still performing well, but that had to be difficult to get through. There was even a spot where she had her head in between Mercedes' legs, and she had a little snack. And then both women planted a very, very aggressive, especially Mercedes, very, very aggressive kiss on each other. Mercedes at one point, this is after Toni knows Tony Storm's nose had already been busted and she's bleeding from it. Mercedes grabs her and really aggressively kisses her face, and that had to be very painful. So they had some of those moments, of course. And I think probably my favorite moment that I thought was going to be the finish was the triple Storm Zero. Tony picked up Mercedes and boom, pile driver. Picked her up, boom, pile driver. 3 quick ones in a row, and Mercedes kicked out. I think I would have preferred a hand on the rope or a foot on the rope to a kick out there, but she did survive. That made me a little bit nervous that, maybe Mercedes was going to win. But ultimately, it was an avalanche Storm Zero that did it. Pile driver from the second rope, gnarly looking. Mercedes came down hard, and that was going to be, I was so happy when it hit. I was celebrating. Like, that's it. She ain't kicking out of that shit. If she is, I will shit a butterball turkey. It's not happening. So she got pinned, she lost, I was relieved, and I thought that was a really good match. The trainers and the doctors did appear to bum rush the ring there on Mercedes, probably just to check on her, because that was a vicious landing there. So we didn't see, or I haven't seen anything about any sort of a Mercedes injury there, so I think she's all right, but they were checking on her. Because that was rough. But Mercedes now finally has suffered her first loss in the company. Athena now owns a guaranteed title shot in the future. So, maybe Athena winds up beating Tony and then defends against Mercedes Moné and retains the title against her. Now you've got your top 3. You've used all 3 women have used each other to elevate themselves. And you've got Tony and you've got Mercedes, and you've got Athena, all kind of at the top of your women's division, not to mention all the other great talent you also have there. So that match, I think, not only delivered in the ring, but we got the outcome we wanted. Really good stuff. And for some reason, I'm mostly indifferent on Mercedes Moné, but there is a really odd contingent of wrestling fans that don't like her. And again, it's the boys. It's the little weird boys. It's all them. But she is good in the ring. Her matches deliver more often than they don't deliver. And so when you look at her, I don't understand what's to really hate. She's a good wrestler. She's over, good look, decorated star, has seen success across multiple promotions, has good matches with wrestlers from all over the globe. What are these boys telling themselves? What are they so desperate to convince themselves of with her? She's great. Mercedes is great. And this was a good match. And Toni Storm is great too. And the right woman won here, because I did not want to deal with that fucking discourse online. So all these fans that insist that she has creative control, I guess she used her creative control to lose. Tony Khan was insistent that she wins here, and she says, nope, I'm pulling my creative control card. That doesn't work for me, sister. I insist on losing. I want to get pinned. That's what they're going to convince themselves of. They've probably already done it. Typing away to an audience of no one. Anyway, next up, another bad prediction for me. I am not having my best day when it comes to predictions. It is time for the AEW Unified Championship match to unify the International Championship and the Continental Championship. Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada. Kenny Omega had a little bit of a special entrance there. I really enjoyed his. And, I was thinking so confidently when talking about this match. I even put up on Twitter during the entrances, I said, this could likely be the last big match victory of Kenny Omega's career. He may never have a victory as big as this one again for the rest of his career. His career is on its last legs. We don't know how much time we have left with Kenny. So I could not fathom him being in a bigger match than what he's going to be in right here against a guy that he's had just an almost ungodly series of matches with, that there's no way this match, we knew going into this match, there was going to be no way that it wasn't going to be the weakest. Even going in, they've had so many bangers that nothing was going to top those. Not in this stage of their careers physically. They weren't going to be able to do anything here that was going to top what they've done in the past. So we knew going in that if you were going to grade all of the Okada and Omega matches, this would be considered the weakest. But guess what? It was still a fucking great match. Think about that. There are so few people in the wrestling business that are like that. We've seen a few, Sean's like that, Eddie's like that. But Sean specifically, guys that can kind of get older and just, still when they have a shitty match, it's still good. It's like sex and pizza. Their worst outing is still better than over half of the wrestling industry. So we knew going in this would be a good match, but probably not going to be reaching the heights that the previous matches did. And I was so convinced that Kenny Omega was going to win this that I didn't really consider anything else. I didn't think about it going the other way. I'm like, no, Tony's going to put over Kenny. This is Kenny's match. And it wasn't. And few people pointed out this makes their all-time total now 2-2-1. So it did make sense for, that now they can have one more, but I thought this could be the final match they ever have together. So maybe there's another one coming down the road where Kenny wins the title from Okada, the unified title. Maybe that's what they're doing, to win the rubber match. Maybe there is a rubber match coming up for the final time, and maybe they'll build this match and book this match as the final time they ever face, with the winner winning the all-time series, and Kenny wins that. Maybe that's what they're doing, but I felt like it might be over here. And I didn't see, I want to look it up because I did not see, and I didn't catch the final match time on this. It wasn't nearly as long as I thought, but in the predictions, I said it was going to go a minimum of 30 minutes and would probably go 40. So I want to look up the match time here. It did go 30. I'm sorry. It went 30 minutes. Holy shit. Okay, so I guess it went about 10 minutes less than I thought. So they did give the match 30 minutes. You know what? It felt like 25. It did. It didn't feel like 30 to me. Wow. Yeah, that was the second longest match on the entire night. Interesting. I did not think it made it to 30 minutes. No, the Casino Gauntlet went 34, and Mox and Hangman went almost 36. So, or 35 for the Gauntlet, and 36 for Hangman and Moxley, and 30 for Kenny and Okada. So, okay, they did get the amount of time that I thought, but I still feel like the finish came quicker, because it was just the Rainmaker. He just hit the Rainmaker and he won. It didn't have the drama, I think, that some of their other matches had. But I also think that I might have missed some of it because I was so shocked. I was like, what? Okada won? I didn't see that coming. I'm not complaining. I'm never upset when I get a prediction wrong because oftentimes I don't really care who wins. And in this case, I'm a big Okada fan. So Okada winning is something that surprised me. And I'm glad that Tony Khan didn't do what I thought would be the predictable outcome here. And this does give me hope that we have not seen the last of these two. Because one thing we should mention about this match is that it does lack a little bit of logic. Don Callis pulled the referee out of the ring during a 3 count when Kenny had the match won and assaulted him, stomped him on his face, took him out of the match. Aubrey Edwards had to run down there later on to finish the match. So why wasn't that a disqualification? Should have been a DQ right there. So the way that all went down, that does set up a potential for these two guys to meet again down the road. So maybe that's what Tony Khan wants. Maybe he wants a trio out of these guys, but I feel like now that their all-time series is tied, you really just do one more. So now, where do you want that to be? Forbidden Door, All Out, Wrestle Dream, Full Gear, World's End. If you do that match again, where do you do it on the pay-per-view road? Where does it land? Because I feel like based on how the match went, we are going to get another match. Unless Kenny is ready to hang it up now. I feel like, we don't have much of Kenny left, but if he wants his last big one-on-one championship program to be against Okada, then you do one more. You have Kenny win, not only the championship, but that gives him the victory in the all-time series. 3-2-1. I think that's what you do. Congrats to Okada, who has held on to that Continental Championship now that has now changed names. It's now the unified title. He's been a champion for a couple of years now. How long has he had that championship since the first Classic tournament that he won? Crazy. Anyway, Okada gets the win. And it should be noted, too, that Kota Ibushi was out there backing up Omega, and somehow Gon Callis was able to be more effective than Kota Ibushi. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. It is time, guys. This match started about 30 minutes into Saturday night's main event. Or 20 minutes. I think the first match was already over. Jelly Roll and Logan Paul were doing their thing when Hangman Page and Jon Moxley are making their entrances. First person to come out is Hangman Page, and shout out to the few people that mentioned in the chat and I've seen on social media over the past couple of days calling that AEW should use Hangman's old theme. And they did. They brought it back, but not before. There was like a little live concert with like a country guy playing guitar and a woman whistling, this gorgeous woman whistling like the beginning to the song Patience, although it wasn't that song. It was kind of like a Hangman country westernish type of whistling. And then Hangman's old theme starts. He makes this amazing entrance, and I loved his gear, and you could just feel it. You know, it was like he was coming down to the ring, and you're just nodding your head. I'm like, that right there is the face of a man that knows he could very well change the course of the industry's momentum tonight. You know, especially if they stick the landing here. They've already had all the right other outcomes. You know, Tony Storm won. Now if Hangman dethrones Moxley and you don't do some stupid bloodline finish like you'd have done every other time Moxley's defended the title, you are going to really send the fans home happy. And then we're going to tune in to NBC to watch Jelly Roll rolling around the mat with Logan Paul and a 60-year-old man in a world championship match. You know, and I was like, WWE could really be shooting themselves in the foot here with this counter-programming shit. You know, their stuff's going to look, you know, and plus it should be noted too, AEW All In outdrew all three of WWE's shows combined. You know, and they had 12,000 plus in the building for Saturday night's main event. You had the 6K that's going to be at Evolution tomorrow, and that the 700 they had at Great American Bash, not even close. They outdrew them by like 7,000 fans. It's ridiculous. So clearly, you know, AEW is a distant and permanent number 2 to WWE, but it is nice to see that it is possible for a number 2 promotion that has to deal with WWE dominating the marketplace, that they are able to draw crowds like that. AEW exists today because fans never thought a wrestling company outside of Vince could draw 10,000 fans. And that's what happened at the first All In, and here we sit all these years later, and it is so refreshing to know that we finally have competition again. Because I had to go 20 years without it. All you tribal fans, you guys are all dumb as fuck, because you're missing out. You're missing out on the feeling of knowing that you've got companies that sometimes can both be hitting on all cylinders at the same time, and we've been lucky enough to go through that already a couple of times with AEW and WWE. So enjoy it, because you might not have it, you know, forever. And with TKO owning WWE now, you know, WWE's making more and more strange decisions, you know, and I don't know sometimes about that company. And I feel like, you know, a night like this is something that could sway public opinion. Let's just put it that way. So Hangman is out to his old entrance. Moxley comes out in this old pickup truck being driven down to the ring. And this thing was so gnarly. My God, right off the bat. I don't know how many minutes we were in to this match. What do you guys think? Maybe 5-ish or something? Out comes a fork. Hangman Page gets a fork, and he starts stabbing in a stabbing motion repeatedly and rapidly the bald head of Jon Moxley. And when I say the blood appeared instantly, it appeared instantly. He was stabbing the meat on his head aggressively, and blood just comes pouring out of Moxley's head. You can see the poke marks where it's poking his flesh, and he's just got blood covering his entire face. Not 5 minutes into this match, I think Hangman even took the fork and just grinded across him. Moxley's got this huge gash, blood pouring down the front of his head, pouring down the back of his head. Moxley was just a mess, and the match hadn't even gotten underway yet. I think he probably used the fork a little bit on Hangman Page as well. We had 2 barbed wire tables set on the outside of the ring. They would later grab another couple of tables and set those up as well. We had barbed wire that Hangman was wrapping around his fist and doing rolling elbows into Moxley's face. Of course, we had chairs. We had barbed wire covered chairs. I think there was a barbed wire bat out there, I think possibly, and a bucket of glass, which Moxley instructs Marina Shafir to locate. She finds it under the ring. They dump it out in the ring, and I got to say, I think it's gimmicked glass because it was really being ground up kind of fine. Moxley was kind of stepping on it to try to break it, but if it was like, and it was all discolored glass, it was basically like a bunch of broken wine bottles. That was the type of glass it was. And you can't just step on that shit and grind it up, you know? You could if you were maybe on pavement. If you put broken glass like that, chunks of glass from a wine bottle on pavement and you grinded it with your shoe, you could probably get some fine grounds there, but not in a wrestling mat, you know? And so when they started doing that and when they were taking bumps on it, it was sharp and it was making them bleed a little bit, but not like if it was real glass. So I think that was not real glass. That's my uneducated guess by looking at it, judging the glass, the way it looked, the way it crumbled and broke up on the mat. It did not seem like real glass to me. Plus, it was stuck all to the back of Hangman Page and Jon Moxley, and I feel like they would have been bleeding a lot more than they were if that was real glass. You know, Darby took that bump at Revolution a couple years ago, you know, what that did to him. Neither guy looked anything like that. It just looked like it was sticking to their backs. So, and sugar glass is still sharp. It can still cut you, but, you know, not like real glass can. So I'm thinking that's kind of what it was. But either way, they're out there rolling around and taking bumps and broken glass. You got fucking nails and barbed wire and chairs and weapons and all this shit laying around in the ring. Both guys are completely bloody from head to toe. It's so gnarly. So we just knew that we had to get through all of the violence before we got to all of the run-ins. And we knew what to expect. Everybody thought it was going to be overbooked madness with a ton of run-ins. And I got to say, I don't want to say it wasn't bonkers because when you're including a promo from the top of Mount fucking Everest, how can you not say that finish was bonkers? But I feel like it wasn't as nuts as I thought they could have gone. I thought it was going to be a lot of crazy shit happening, but it was somewhat tame, only because I think maybe my expectations were so high for all the things they were going to do. So first person to finally run in is Wheeler Yuta, right? Wheeler Yuta runs in, and then you're like, okay, all right, we've got it now. We know what's going to happen. This is going to be the first one, followed by more. So Wheeler Yuta is then taken out. And then we get Gabe Kidd and Claudio Castagnoli coming out and Will Ospreay. So Ospreay, I believe, is out next to help run in. But he's taken out by Claudio and Gabe. And they do the same thing to Will Ospreay's head with the chair that they did to Samoa Joe in the first match. So then the medical team is out there with a stretcher to wheel out Will Ospreay. So now he's taken out. So after that, who comes out? I think we get... I think the first thing that happened was Prince Nana, right? So Moxley... Sorry, I didn't write my own notes, so I'm going by memory here. So Moxley instructs Marina Shafir to go get the briefcase. Get the briefcase. I don't know if he's going to open it and retrieve the title or show us the title or what he's going to do with the briefcase, or if he's just going to hold it in Hangman's face and just taunt him with it. So he instructs Marina to go over to the timekeeper's area to get the briefcase. And when she goes over there, she comes back and finds herself all of a sudden handcuffed to the guardrail. And then Prince Nana was hiding down there, and he grabbed her and handcuffed her to the railing. So that's when you knew we were going to see Swerve Strickland. And then after that, we had a masked figure, right? It might have been before that. I think it was after that. A masked figure come in from behind, and you could tell, you saw the beard. It was Bryan Danielson under a mask, and he takes out Moxley. He takes out everybody with his running knees. He's doing the yes chants. The fans are going nuts. So we had Bryan Danielson coming out there. Then we had, I think, the Young Bucks. They make their presence known, and that's when we get... The lights go out. I might be having the order here wrong, but I know the lights go out, and you know it's going to be Darby, right? And they cut to the video wall, and this was just, to me, so incredible. I can't get over how crazily awesome I think this was. They cut to the video, and you are all of a sudden on the summit of Mount Everest that Darby just finished climbing, where he claimed he planted an AEW flag. And when he was up there a few weeks ago, he recorded a promo on his phone saying, "John Moxley, I just climbed to the top of Mount Everest, and now I'm going to climb down and take everything away from you." I cannot tell you how mind-blowing that is. You think after watching wrestling for 42 years that you've seen it all. We haven't seen this. A wrestling promo cut on the Earth's highest peak. You cannot go any higher as a human on foot than where Darby was on the entire globe. He is as high up as you can go. And he cuts a wrestling promo that gets used in the main event of a wrestling pay-per-view. That's wild stuff. That's wild stuff. I know JBL climbed Everest, but he didn't cut no promo up there. So Darby cut the promo, they used the footage, and then you see Darby propelling from the ceiling. He's in a little harness there. He comes down, unhooks himself, starts running around, taking everybody out, coffin drops, all of the Death Riders and whatnot. And then Darby and everybody kind of powders out, and that leaves Moxley and Hangman Page again. And you think Hangman is going to finally take out Moxley. I think he hits him with a buckshot or whatever it is, and Moxley survives. I think he throws him on the outside of the ring. Maybe that's what it is. And I think it's Marina Shafir at one point. No, Marina's still handcuffed. So Marina at one point did save Moxley, but Moxley winds up surviving all of that. And then the Bucks are still out there. So then they get a hold of Hangman, right? So the Bucks are kind of interfering. And Moxley survives Hangman Page after Darby Allin interferes. And then they bring out the bed of nails. And they I think Hangman Page gets paradigm shifted on it, and somehow survives that. And I cannot remember what happened next, but I do know that the Young Bucks were still out on the outside of the ring, kind of standing guard. And maybe that's when Mox instructed Marina to go over and get handcuffed. I might have all of the sequence here all out-timed or mistimed. But you could tell that once Darby came out and once Ospreay had been taken out and we hadn't seen Swerve Strickland yet, and everything that the story they've been telling up until this point with that big conversation on Collision, it was going to be Swerve to be the final guy. We were kind of thinking it was going to be Sting and Darby showing up. Somebody's got to play the role of The Undertaker at WrestleMania 40 when Cody Rhodes won. But really, the person that should have offered the final bit of assistance to Hangman Page was Swerve Strickland. That's the story they've been telling you all this time. And so that's when it was fitting. When he showed up, he took out the Young Bucks. Once you saw Prince Nana, you knew that Swerve wouldn't be far behind. He takes out the Bucks, and then he's got, the chain, right? He's got a handful of chain, and he just hands it to Page, and Hangman sees him. Hangman sees Swerve taking out the Bucks. He's looking right at him. He doesn't know what to make of it. Swerve grabs the chain, tosses it to Hangman, and basically take care of business. And now Hangman has to decide whether or not to accept the help. He grabs the chain. He wraps it around the neck of John Moxley. You know where this is going. He's going to throw him right over the top rope and hang him by the chain from the neck. And you knew, they did it once and then went back to it. Moxley kind of half-ass escaped it, but then he did it again. And you could tell instantly, as soon as Moxley tumbled over the top with that chain around his neck, the way he was selling it, Moxley was way too animated. He was way too animated with his selling. He was really kind of twitching and spazzing out hard. You knew that was going to be it. And it wasn't going to be a choke out, pass out situation. He was going to tap. And he was really struggling, in that chain. And a few seconds later, he taps out. Hangman Page with the glorious victory, choking out Moxley, ending that run the best way you could have, by literally hanging the man to death by a chain in a Texas death match. Both men spilled pints of blood, and it was incredible. And Hangman Page wins the championship. He gets the briefcase. He struggles to open it a little bit, but then finally you can kind of see he has it opened. He's got the key and he's messing with it, and then finally he hasn't opened it yet, but he just has this sigh of relief. And you can just see then the emotion just hits him, and he did say he had his family there, but you can just see like it all just kind of hits him all at once. Holy shit, I just did it. Opens up the briefcase and he pulls out the AEW championship belt that we have not seen since last October. We haven't had a glimpse of it. They haven't shown it once on camera. It is literally, I think they really dedicated themselves to this angle. They were committed to having that championship in that briefcase unopened for all of these months. I think it even had the Daniel Bryan plates still on it because he was the last person to hold it, and nobody's seen the title since. So Hangman having the championship, celebrating with it, getting that moment. The fans get to visualize with their own eyes that championship for the first time in almost a year, which is just crazy for a wrestling company to hide its biggest prize from its audience for that long. It was crazy. So that was just a lot of relief for a lot of fans. And Tony Khan knew his mission. He had a mission he doesn't always accomplish his missions, but his mission here was 2 specific matches. Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné and Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. Those 2 matches, outcomes was everything. Everything was going to hinge on that. Doesn't matter what you do on the show, how much of a good effort you put forth. You got Mercedes and Moxley walking out victorious. You are going to alienate a giant chunk of your audience. And you have a lot of people turning on you. Worse than the Epstein files. You don't want that. So Tony did what he had to do and what he knew he had to do. And now you got a lot of things set up. You got Darby Allin back. He might be feuding with Moxley now. Hangman Page is going to have to contend with MJF at some point. He's probably going to have a championship match with Swerve at some point. You think he might owe him that. I mean, I don't know how much credit he's going to give Swerve or how much credit Swerve is going to want from Hangman, but Swerve did him a solid there. And I love the relationship between those two and how they've grown, and Tito. And, having another match, now for the championship is something you could see as well. So Hangman Page being champion just sounds a lot more fun than Moxley holding that belt hostage. And let's hope that it's a long time, if not ever, until Jon Moxley is a 5-time AEW World Champion. I think he currently sits at 4, right? Or is it 5 already? It's 4 or 5. Pretty sure it's 4. So let's hope that we don't really need a Moxley run for a while. Let's hope Moxley's next World Championship run, if he's going to have one, is no longer than or no shorter than 3 years away. Minimum. 3 years. That's the next time I want to see Moxley hold a world title in AEW. Give him one of the other belts. Have him beat after Kenny beats Okada and wins that title back. Maybe Moxley beats Kenny or something like that. Who knows? Overall, I'm going to give All In an A. Not an A+, not an A-, an A. There was a couple of things on the show that I thought wasn't great, but overall, the pay-per-view was enjoyable, and it was fun. And a lot of people, what I liked about this as well is that a lot of people got time. Between those 2 gauntlet matches, a lot of talent got an opportunity to be on pay-per-view. Adam Cole's injury gave an opportunity to 3 other people to get a title match. And you had a lot of, the Hurt Syndicate 3-way match with everybody that was involved there, plus the main event and all of the run-ins there. It was good to see, 90% of your roster represented on this show, and that's the way it should be. This is their biggest show of the year. There was a time years ago when WWE tried to get everybody they could on WrestleMania. Sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad. But I think for AEW, once a year at All In, to give as many members of your roster an opportunity to be out there, the better. And they were able to accomplish that, I think, without making it feel that way. Like, oh my God, they're just throwing everybody out there. But when you really look at it, when you write down the names of talent that we visibly saw with our own eyes, it's damn near the whole roster, it feels like. And that's good. That's good. So congrats to AEW. They pulled off, I think, a very good All In. It's hard for me to remember, so I'll ask you guys, how would you rate this All In compared to the previous 2 in London? Is it better than the other 2? Is it tied for 1? I did like both. I liked the MJF and Adam Cole match. I don't remember what the fuck happened last year, Swerve and something, right? So I remember liking and loving the last 2, but this one would just felt extra special because it ended the long run of Moxley and it once again crowned Hangman Page as champion, and he really is, their face of the company right now. So happy. So happy for him. Yeah, good job, AEW. Solid shit. All right, my God, let's move on to Saturday night's main event, which I was able to backtrack and catch most of. What did you guys think of it? Did you see it? Were you able to see it? How would you rate Saturday night's main event? I did miss some of it. I saw some of you commenting on Bianca Belair. I didn't even see her on there, but apparently she was announced to be the special guest referee for Naomi and Jade tomorrow at Evolution, which is good. That might be more evidence that we are going to get that 3-way between them at SummerSlam that I've been calling for quite a while. Oh, yeah, I see her now. Oh, yeah, she does look good in the pink. Good Lord, Bianca. You need to knock it off. You need to knock it off. All right, let's talk about Saturday night's main event, and then I'm going to end this 10-hour streaming day because it's been nuts. Saturday night's main event opened with Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. Now, this was basically a match to set up the rumored match that we already knew about. Jelly Roll was going to be involved in a SummerSlam match. That was the reports that we were receiving this week. So we knew that they were going to be setting up something for that soon because SummerSlam's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So Jelly Roll was backing up Randy Orton and Logan Paul was backing up Drew McIntyre here. We had Randy Orton getting the victory off of an RKO after a Jelly Roll distraction on Drew McIntyre. So Drew's jawing with Jelly Roll. He turns around, eats an RKO, and loses. Logan Paul then immediately attacks Randy Orton. Jelly Roll, who, by the way, looks great. He lost a lot of weight, I think, since the last time we've seen him on WWE TV, so good for him. He runs in and attacks Logan Paul and then winds up eating a Claymore from Drew McIntyre. And then later on in the show, they made official for SummerSlam Randy Orton and Jelly Roll versus Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. So this whole situation was kind of predictable. They set this up on SmackDown last night. You could tell that whatever match Jelly Roll was going to be in, it was probably going to be a tag with Orton and Drew McIntyre. And since Orton won here, I think Drew and Logan will definitely get the win at SummerSlam, and not much to say there. Everybody enjoyed the segment last night on SmackDown, so even though we roll our eyes a little bit at the Jelly Roll stuff and at some celebrity involvements here, we as fans should be used to these by now in WWE, and sometimes they're fine and they're inoffensive, and sometimes you kind of wonder what the fuck they're thinking. But so far, everybody has, or at least last night on SmackDown, everybody, from what I could tell, did enjoy the segment, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea either. So for me, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I don't know anything about Jelly Roll, but from what I understand, he's a pretty decent guy. Hopefully he's not MAGA or nothing, but he seems like a decent dude. I don't really listen to his music, but everybody kind of likes him. He's got a big following. He's a big celebrity. Getting involved in a match here, good publicity for everybody, I suppose, and it's what we've come to expect from WWE. Nothing like this should really shock us. So Jelly Roll will be in a tag with Logan Paul at SummerSlam. Great. Solo Sikoa, he successfully defended the United States title, defeating Jimmy Uso. Little roll-up victory with some help from Tala Tonga. Not much to say about this match. I didn't think that Jimmy would win the championship here, and he didn't. Solo Sikoa did retain. I'm trying to, I'm wondering when Solo drops the title, who it will be to. If they're going to just put it back on Jacob, or if they're going to try to move Jacob into the upper card. I'm not sure about that. I feel like he might kind of be floating where he is. Because I feel like, Jacob's great and everything, but it's starting to get a little bit redundant. I don't need to hear no gas all gas, no brakes. I don't need to hear that 7 times in every match in promo. So he could just drop it right back to Jacob, but he wasn't going to lose it here to Jimmy Uso, and Solo Sikoa is still your United States champion. Then we had the match that sucks, that's kind of scary. Seth Rollins taking on LA Knight. I was just sitting down with some food when all of this was happening, and you saw Seth Rollins come up funny on the knee, and he sits down in the corner, and the trainers are there, the referees are there talking to him, and it was really a combination of something that looked like a work and a shoot at the same time. The way Rollins initially springboarded off the top rope and his knee buckled, that looked legit. That looked like it didn't look like he slipped. It looked like he really tweaked himself there. But then when he transitioned into moonsault, he landed perfectly, but then he looked like he oversold it. So the first tweak looked real. The second tweak looked like a work. And then when he sits down in the corner there and the referee is talking to him and the trainer, I'm like, okay, this could go either way. This could be a work or a shoot at this point. And then when he gets up and decides to continue the match, I'm like, okay, it's a work. And then boom, he immediately eats a BFT. I'm like, well, that makes it seem like it's a shoot. That screams audible because that match ended early. That gives 40 minutes now to Gunther and Goldberg, which is way too long. LA Knight didn't even sell the victory. He just kind of like shrugged and left the ring immediately. So it was like springboard looked legit. Second tweak looked like a work. Sitting down in the corner and agreeing to resume the match looked like a work. BFT, quick finish. LA Knight leaves the ring, feels like a shoot. So I was like, work, shoot, work, shoot, work, shoot. Turns out it does sound like Seth Rollins did legitimately tweak his knee, and according to Fightful Select, an audible was called. He was supposed to win here, and they called for the BFT finish and the LA Knight victory, which will go down pretty much as a clean victory for him, even though Seth Rollins got injured. And now we can only hope that this is not serious, because this is the top star or the center of your angles pretty much on Monday Night Raw storyline-wise, and you're going into, in just 2 or 3 weeks, your second biggest pay-per-view of the year. This could be scary. If anybody sees any updates as we're talking here on Seth Rollins, please let us know. All we know is that he was injured legitly and it was not a work or a storyline, and that we don't know the severity as of yet of what the injury could be. I thought maybe it was a way to throw us off the scent, because I was dismissing people saying that Hangman Page was going to get cashed in on by the winner of the gauntlet. I never believed that any more than I believed Seth Rollins was going to cash in here tonight on Saturday night's main event. Just didn't think it was going to happen and said so in the predictions. But once that happened, I'm like, maybe it's WWE's way of throwing us off the scent. They think Rollins is injured or he's left the building or whatever. I even said that in my predictions. I cited when Damian Priest was Money in the Bank briefcase holder. There was a few times there when predicting pay-per-views, I said Priest is going to find himself in a perfect opportunity to cash in. So if he's not going to cash in, they need to do something to take that cash in away from him. One time he got in trouble with Rhea Ripley with Mommy, and she grounded him and took his briefcase away. Another time, Sami Zayn hopped the barricade and stole it and ran off with it. So I kind of said something similar in my predictions the other night. I said, if Rollins isn't going to cash in, you need to give him a reason not to, because he might be set up in the perfect situation here. If Gunther barely wins and he's suffering a couple of broken ribs, from several spears, he might be ripe for the picking right there. So when Rollins got injured, I'm like, oh, maybe they're doing that to throw us off, and he's not going to cash in, or he's actually going to come back at the end. But there's no way. Like, this night was about Goldberg. They weren't going to do that any more than they were at All In. All In is about Hangman Page dethroning Moxley. You don't need to add a fucking cash into that. Wrestling fans have been kind of conditioned to expect some situations like that because of situations like SummerSlam 2013 and all that. I'm like, you should never do that. Don't do that. So I didn't think it was going to happen here. And plus, Goldberg, during his entrance, had that old school entrance, including, knock, 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 Doug Dillinger, who some people during All In were saying, hey, Doug Dillinger is at Saturday night's main event. and they're showing him on camera. It was in Atlanta. I think Ernest the Cat Miller was there too. DDP. Let me know who else was kind of in the posse there. I know Goldberg's son Gage, and Doug Dillinger knocks on the door. And so once I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is it. There's not going to be any, you know how Goldberg said, oh, if he wins the title, that's quite the dilemma. There's not going to be a dilemma. This is going to be it for him. This is it for him. Everybody is there. Doug Dillinger knocking on the door. That's all I needed to see. I'm like, it's a done deal. This will be it. He will not be winning the championship and losing a cash into Rollins. This is going to be his night. And my God, the amount of time they had here. Even after Gunther and Goldberg made their entrances and then you did the introductions, you still had like nearly 30 minutes to do this match. And it wasn't a 5-minute match. They actually went a little bit long. Goldberg still, for his age, looked in incredible shape, but definitely looked, physically limited in there. But overall, they protected it somewhat, and it didn't come off too sloppy or clunky. And they had several commercial breaks here as well. There was a ref bump. Charles Robinson did go down, so I was a little bit worried, that something could happen there. So when the ref went down, Goldberg actually got Gunther up in the jackhammer, and it was a nasty-looking jackhammer. He came down real funny. I was worried that he might have injured Gunther, or because Gunther kind of looked like he landed on his shoulder maybe. So I was worried about that, but luckily all seemed well there. And then the new ref came in, and Gunther kicked out of the jackhammer. In the end, it was the sleeper that did Bill Goldberg in. Gunther locked him in the sleeper, and Goldberg went to sleep, and that is the end of Goldberg's career. He was joined in the ring by his family and everybody that made the trip to Atlanta to be with him, and he cut a promo, but they cut him off. It was like 2 minutes to the top of the hour. They went to commercial, if you can fucking believe that, and then came back, and Goldberg spoke for like 15 seconds, and they cut him off, and that was it. So I don't know why they went to that final commercial. That was really weird, unless I could have been a little bit behind in my Peacock. No, they still went to commercial and then came back and he talked for like 5 seconds and they cut him off. So I'm sure on social media, that entire interview can be found. I haven't watched it yet. I will here later. There's everybody. There's I don't know who the Asian fella is. I don't know who the Italian fella is, even though I recognize him. But his son, Ernest Miller, and Dillinger. And I don't know who that other guy is either. But yeah, that was cool. But I'm sure if you want to see his speech, that there's a full version of it somewhere. So, what a night. My God, what a night. All right, guys, what are you guys saying here in the chat? Let me refresh it so I can see what the hell's going on and what you guys are saying. And then we'll answer a few questions and get feedback from you guys, and then I will probably call it a night because it's been a wild one, man. Freaking wild one. All right, I'm going to try to get to the super chats here first. Okay, got that one. Got that one. Got that one. Okay, got Fragile. All right, okay, just a couple. I'm not missing that many. Just one from Jonathan Cantris. Thank you so much, dude, for the $5. Happy for Hangman, ending Mox's reign. Hyped for Edge and Christian reunion. And man, Goldberg no-selling Gunther's chop was awesome. Great way to end his career. Yeah, I am okay with the way the match went. I wasn't sure about this whole thing. Obviously, it wasn't pretty, but in terms of a send-off for Goldberg, I think I'm just glad it's finally over. He should have been done in 2017. He should have been done eight years ago after WrestleMania 33. Over 8 years ago is when he should have been done. I would speak fondly of Goldberg to this day if that would have been his final match against Brock Lesnar. And he got his speech on Raw, and he celebrated, and he went home. But everything he did after that really soured me on him, and I wanted nothing to do with him at all. So I just wanted to get this match done and over with and hope that it didn't set the business back 50 fucking years. And luckily, I don't think it did. It was executed about as well as you could expect it to be. And I'm glad that Goldberg got his send-off finally. And then this is finally it. Finally it. Mike Witt's got 10. Thank you so much, dude. Hey, Greg and chat. Great show. I still think Eddie Kingston is going to come back soon to help Darby erase the Death Riders. Remember, the match Eddie was hurt in was against Gabe Kidd. Just saying, there you go. I'm now looking for a place for Eddie Kingston to show up in as well. That sounds like the perfect spot. Especially if Darby is getting worked over or something in some sort of TV angle or pay-per-view angle, and out comes Eddie. Hell yeah. I would be very much into it. True. About 10 years since the last time this happened to Seth. That's true. Oh, yeah, there's in a Texas Death Match, JT, it's just a knockout or submission. Super. The fork spot was nuts. My reaction, I mean, I jumped all the way back. I'm like, God damn, I couldn't even watch it. I'm like, I don't want to see metal digging into the skull of a human. Jesus Christ. Why do I want to see that? That's nasty. Yeah, I kind of see. I had to play catch up on Saturday night's main event, so I didn't get the whole feel of it, you know. So if I would have watched it from start to finish on NBC, you know, I feel like it would have been a meh type of event, and kind of a sad one too, because Rollins, you know, could very well be injured seriously here. Hopefully, we get some news soon. But if he's waiting for an MRI or something like that. Trying to see if there's any news coming out of the all-in scrum. Tony Khan is claiming close to 30,000 after the walk-up, but I think it's 27. I think it's just under 28. It could be 28. I don't think it's 30, but could be 30. And the gate is expected to pass 3 million. And then with the pay-per-view buys, they're probably going to be in the 150,000 range for that. So they pulled in some good revenue here. Millions and millions of dollars. Not bad. It's weird Charlotte is more hated than Mercedes? No, I think that sounds about right. I don't really hate either woman, but I like Mercedes more than Charlotte. Yeah, Max. Good. Jeff Hardy did the same thing. A lot of wrestlers are guilty of this. Jeff had to do his little dance before he saved his brother, his own flesh and blood. Got to dance first. If one of my sisters is out getting mugged down the street, I'm going to dance before I save him. So good luck, girls. Right on. Okay, I just want to make sure I think I got all the questions answered. Mike Witt, yes, the pop Danielson got was awesome. It was cool to see him still doing the yes chants. I saw the clip or the headline of apparently during StarCast, he said that WWE did contact him to kind of ask him to quit doing the yes chants. Didn't look like he got the message. He had the whole fucking building doing that, so that was cool. The whole show was good. It was fun. It was a fun day of wrestling. I flipped the switch here at noon, and it is nearly 10 p.m. So I am ready to do something else other than this. And I need a shower, and I need some food. So anyway, we're going to be back at it again tomorrow night. We're going to be here to watch Evolution. So we're going to watch the pay-per-view and see how this thing goes tomorrow. We'll see if I do as shitty in my predictions tomorrow as I did tonight for these two shows. I do have Rhea Ripley winning the title tomorrow night. To close out the show, I have Tiffany Stratton retaining against Trish. I have JC Jane retaining against Jordan Grace. And I've got Becky retaining against Lyra and Bayley. So the only title change I have happening... Oh, and I have Raquel and Roxanne retaining as well in that four-way. So the only title I have predicted to change hands tomorrow is in the main event. We will see if I am right or wrong about that. Anyway, guys, again, big thank you from the bottom of my heart. Long day today. I appreciate all of you who were here with me for so many hours. This is a lot of fun, and hopefully you can join us again tomorrow night. As of right now, we're probably going to skip a Raw review on Monday. I've got some plans, but that might change. We might have some big news on Monday. Don't quote me on that, because we might learn some Seth Rollins news, and we might see WWE pivot in some sort of different direction if Rollins is out. So we may have a lot to talk about on Monday. We may very well be here. But before we get to Monday, we got to get to tomorrow, and we will be here to watch Evolution together. Thank you so much for a real fun day, guys. I appreciate it. I will be catching you tomorrow for the women's show. Peace.